Welcome back to the greatest carp fishing podcast in the world. It's not the Quarter Podcast. It is the Carp Chronicles podcast, episode number 51. And two things are going to be happening in this episode. First thing, I'm going to be drinking copious amounts of beer. So, no surprises there for many of you, but it's going to happen. Second thing that's going to happen is I'm answering your questions. So I put a post up on Instagram the other day. If you don't follow us there, you really should. Asking for your questions, saying I was going to do a solo episode, which I am. And here we are. Many of you have submitted questions. I'm going to do my best to get through them all. And in all honesty, I'm a little bit short on time. So I would imagine this is going to be broken down into a two-parter. I'll answer half the questions tonight, and then I'll answer the other half another night. Time is of the essence for me right now, to be honest. Really busy with work and things like that. And this podcast is a big drain on time, to be honest with you, more than perhaps you realise. But nonetheless, I realise people want it to be consistent. Like you don't want to wait a month or two between episodes. I understand that. So I'm going to do my absolute best to keep these episodes rolling out in a nice kind of quick fashion for you all. Oh, yeah, bit of exciting news, for me at least. OptiBaits, my bait company, check it out, optibaits.com. I'm now selling our flavours in 100ml bottles. Now, this has been a criticism of people in the past. Up until now, I've been selling our flavours in 50ml glass bottles, which is enough for people wanting to make some hook baits, etc. But those of you that want to use them in a feed bait, and you're going to be going through a lot of flavour, I realise you want bigger bottles as well as that. I realise our flavours are quite expensive. It isn't because I've just slapped a massive markup on them, I promise you. It's because they're actually all tailored to me. They have lots of extras in there. The flavours, you would be shocked at the length I go to actually to create these flavours. You really would. They are very different from the other companies that just buy them from whatever company it may be and just relabel it. I actually put my own twist on all of our flavours. A lot of them are made to my specification, and when I get the flavours, every single flavour, I have trialed them and I have tweaked them and I changed them so they are how I think they should be and how they perform best. Anyway, that's why they're expensive. But good news, I've bulk bought a shed load of bottles, which is a bit crazy. I don't know where I'm going to keep them all. And it's made them much cheaper. As well as that, I've bulk bought in different aspects, different components of the flavour. So long story short, I can offer 100ml bottles of the flavours at not ridiculous money. A little bit more expensive than obviously the 50ml bottles, but I've saved on the flavour because I bought in bulk. I've saved on the bottles because I've bought in bulk. So yeah, 100ml flavours. That is now what we sell. You can't get the 50ml bottles anymore. They're all sold in the 100ml, and they are priced as cheap as I can possibly make them for. Worth checking out, optibaits.com. Probably worth mentioning as well before we jump in, I'm actually not at home as I record this. So I'm on a slightly different microphone. Hopefully the quality is okay for you. It's not going to be as good as my usual microphone, but it should be pretty good. Certainly good enough to listen along to. So should be fine. Just thought I would mention that anyway. Before we jump in, got to mention we're very kindly brought to you by bpmilling.co.uk. Go ahead, check them out. Fantastic sustainable feeds for fishery owners as well as anglers that want something a little bit different. I use the Smart Mix pellets. I like them. I cannot see myself stopping using them anytime soon. So please go ahead, check out bpmilling.co.uk. Check out the YouTube as well. He's got some really good videos on there. With that being said, let's jump into the episode where, as I said, I'm going to be answering your questions. Now, I've had a lot of questions. Some of them, going to be honest, a little bit silly. Not going to mention those. I'm not going to read those out, and I'm sure the people that sent them don't expect me to. But if you sent a question in and it's a serious question, I'm going to do my absolute best to cover it today. Let's jump straight into it. Without further ado, And I'm going to start with quite a long question. I actually offered this up on Instagram. I put a little. If you're not on Instagram, you probably don't know what I'm talking about. But I put up a story and put a little box where you can answer me a question, and you can only fit a certain amount of letters into that box. So some people messaged a more lengthy question, which is absolutely fine. I'm going to start off with one of those lengthy questions. Okay, so I'm going to read it out. And by the way, I haven't, gone through these questions and thought what I'm going to say. I'm literally kind of doing it on the fly with you. I don't know if that's going to sound annoying. Um, Let me know if it does. But yeah, I'm going to read them out and respond in real time, as it were. So Chris has asked, 75-acre northern reservoir, not fished all that much for carp, often only the carp angler on. So he's often only the carp angler on. Rumoured to be between 20 to 60 carp. Okay. So 20 to 60 carp in a 75 acres. I only fish Friday nights after work. This year I've had 10 bites from end of July to November. Started baiting 3 to 4 weeks. First bite, been baiting every morning, half to 3/4 of a kilo of boilies. Had 7 bites, 2 fish and 1 more. Took a big camel and moved my baiting to the other side of the lake to try and avoid any more recaptures. So he's had recaptures here. Okay. Started introducing around 100 tigers each day too. Paid off and had 2 new fish, but the last bite was from one of the fish I moved to avoid. My question, have you or anyone you know experienced anything like this? Why do you think it happened? I think what this guy is asking is he's had some recaptures. So he was fishing an area, baiting it up. He's had a few recaptures, so he's moved to a different area, presumably thinking maybe the fish are territorial, so he's going to get some other fish. And he's had 2 different fish and one of the same. I mean, look, like some fish will just get caught more than others. I mean, and we could go deep into this. And in fact, fuck it, let's go deep into it. I think, obviously some fish will throw caution to the wind and they'll just get down and they will eat. And they're less precautious than other fish. I think that has something to do with it. I think other things that are worth mentioning is how fish feed. Now, a lot of this comes down to not just the fish's character type, but the fish's body type. You'll see different shaped fish will feed differently. So, for an example, a very long torpedo type common, it could be a mirror, but let's say a classic cricket bat common. That's going to feed very, very different to I'm being stereotypical here, but a short, fat, leather, for example, or Italian style fish. Those Italians tend to have real sloping head, big gut. That fish is going to feed very, very differently to a cricket bat common or a long torpedo type fish. So you have to bear that in mind. I mean, it's not so much bait, but it's more rigs. So if your rigs are not well equipped for a stationary feeding style or a more moving feeding style, then you're going to kind of pitch your catches towards a certain type of fish. I've fished lakes before where I've been targeting a certain carp and it's had a, X body shape, for example, a certain body shape. And I've changed rigs because I think, it's feeding differently. Or I've been fishing on steep marginal shelves and I've thought, well, how is the fish going to come in and feed on this shelf? I can't put my bait on somewhere flat because I don't want to fish there, or there isn't a flat area, for example. So my bait is going to be on a slope. Where is that? What direction is that fish going to come from? And B, how is it going to pick it up? What's the angle of its mouth going to be? What's the angle of its body going to be? And I realize some people listening will think, well, this is going a little bit too far. But it's actually not. It's actually a really valid point. And we can look into bait as deep as we want and try and find, the latest thing that's going to trigger them to feed and all that jazz. But actually, really significant is how the fish picks up the bait. If it's stationary, hoovering, for example, you need your rig to work with that. If it's moving from bait to bait, you need your rig to work, with that. If it's upending, your rig needs to accommodate that. If it's not upending and its belly's basically touching the floor, it's kind of like you're hoovering down, your rig needs to be able to accommodate that. So I think this is really, really relevant, and perhaps not enough people look into it. So that's one thing. Anyway, waffling on, Chris. That's one thing. Maybe it's your rigs are pitching towards that. Maybe it's just the fish that you've caught are the, quote unquote friendly fish, and they get caught much more. Maybe it's bait. Okay, this is the last kind of thing that I would say. Well, actually, it's not the last thing, but the next thing I would say is bait. Different fish have different preferences for different bait. This has been covered in previous podcasts to, quite a large degree, I feel. So, I'm sure you're all familiar with this. But yeah, certain fish will prefer certain baits. So maybe that's it. And again, as you said in your message, you've moved. Maybe it is a territorial thing. The one that got caught in your old spot and then your new one, maybe it's moved around. Absolutely plausible. Maybe try different areas. It's so difficult, isn't it? And this is the beauty of carp fishing. There are so many different variables. And I don't know about you, but when I fish a lake, I see things like that, and I just get a feeling for what I think is right, and I'm not always right. But more often than not, you are right. Actually, if you trust your gut instinct, I'm a big believer in that. I do. I trust my gut instinct. So whilst I think it's useful to like analyze this and break it down and think about the possibilities, I also think it's really worthwhile just trusting your gut, trusting your instinct, and going with that. Yeah, I don't think there's much more than that I can say about it. It's without knowing the water and without fishing it, it's a difficult one. I mean, the ultimate thing is if there's fish you haven't caught that you want to catch, and I'm presuming that's the case, find those fish. Get up a tree, look for the fish. Not enough people do this. I do short sessions now. I will not cast out unless I know for a fact there is at least a fish there. Normally, 9 times out of 10, I won't cast out unless it's a fish I want to actually catch. But I have to know carp are in the area for me to cast out. So, try and find the fish that you want to catch, and then, process of elimination. Fish for them there. Are they interested in the feed? Yes or no? Or maybe it's not an area that they feed, or maybe they're not interested in the bait. And, strip it back like that. I don't feel like I've answered your question very well, Chris, and I apologise about that. But it's difficult for me to answer without knowing the water more. Oh, I've just realised there's a second half to this. He's given some more info. Sorry, 9 out of 10 bites have been between 5 and 9 a.m. I bait up at 6 a.m. every morning, so I think they have been trained to turn up and feed at that baiting time. Yeah, quite possibly. I'm using all 4 Baitworks boilies. I'm jumping back and forth through messages. Lots of wild swimmers come in the morning, 3 to 4 bites. Have been within 15 minutes of a swimmer swimming over the baited area. Yeah, doesn't surprise me. Carp are inquisitive. They really are. And they're not as shy and as spooky of that kind of thing, boats and swimmers as we'd think they were. One was a lady, swam over the spot, and as it took line, stayed under the swimmer to the point I thought the first couple of mins she may have tethered my line until I turned the fish, but the lady showed no signs of struggling or attaching the line. Yeah, it's very interesting. Very, very interesting. It's, as I said, these kind of boating lakes where there's boats flying around, windsurfers, paddleboarders, swimmers. You'd think the carp would be like getting well out the way. That's not always the case. You've got to remember they're used to it day in, day out, aren't they? Certainly through the summer months. So they get used to it. And as I said, they definitely have an inquisitive side. So yeah, I wouldn't rule it out. Same as diving birds. Pretty much all of us, I'm sure, that fish these pits with lots of bird life. There can be there can be birds diving on you, and you'll get a take in the middle of it, and you think it's a bird pickup, and it turns out to be a carp. They're pretty tough animals, really. They're not too spooky. I hope that helps, Chris. Anyway, apologies if I haven't answered it well enough for you. But yeah, tough one. Right, next question. What would be your starting point when designing a new bass mix? Oof, good question. From Damo. It depends. It depends what I'm doing. So I've designed bass mixes around a new product that I wanted to use, or a new product, whether it was new to the market, whether it was new to me, a new discovery. Then I'd perhaps build one around that. I'll give you an example. I've had times when I've really looked into different spices, and I've designed a bait around that. Another instance would be targeting a water. Um, which is kind of how my hydro milk base mix came about. Wanted a high protein, high milk protein, high refined milk protein bait, I should say, for various reasons that I've spoke about before. Design that the water, that was most people are using either fish meals or nut baits, as a lot of waters see these days. I wanted something different. I wanted something that would switch on the bigger fish, the older fish. So I started kind of developing that hydro milk base mix. So that was the inspiration for that. Um, yeah, so it usually it's dictated by either there's a product or a theme I want to explore, or 9 times out of 10 it's the water I'm fishing. So I don't think this year I'm using X bait. I'll go to a water, get a new ticket or what have you, and I'll think, okay, well, look, here's what's happening. This is the type of fish that they are, whether they're young, old. Usually it's old for me, out of preference anyway. Are they big? Are they small? Again, usually big, ideally, same as all of us, right? Are they commons? Are they mirrors? And more importantly, like, what is everyone else feeding? What are they seeing as their staple food from anglers? Are most people on fish meals? Are most people on kind of bird foods, on nut baits like what is it? The Cell and Manila. I don't know if you'd class them as nut baits or probably cereal baits, aren't they? Those you get used a hell of a lot. Same as other waters dominated by fish meals. I get that. So I would use that as a kind of meat stick and say, okay, well look, this is what the carp are mostly seeing, coinciding with their natural food source, which is really important. If they're just surviving off of angler's bait and not much else, the odd bit of um, lake naturals, so to speak, then that's one thing. If the lake is absolutely riddled with naturals, um, that's a different thing, and I would accommodate my base mix to suit that. But really nowadays, I've got a fish meal mix that I'm very happy with. It's extremely soluble. It's extremely attractive. I could waffle on about that for ages. I'm very happy with that. Then I've got the hydro milk, which is more of a kind of specialized bait. It's quite expensive, very expensive, in fact. Um, and then I do have a little kind of like creamy bird food, which is a bit of a cheaper mix, which I could bait en masse if wanted to. Um, Generally, a water will fit into those three things. But yeah, to answer your question in short, what would be your starting point? It would be either the fish I'm fishing for, or it would be exploring a new product. Hope that helps. Next question. What is your most underrated product? It's a good question. Um, Underrated. Well, I'm going to read that as undersold, because it tends to be the people that buy my products, like they repeat buy. I was looking at this the other day, actually, the other week. I can look at my kind of go into the back end of my website, and it shows me what customers buy. And yeah, a lot of repeat buys. I would say the most under Choco Stim. So, and I kind of get that actually. Choco Stim, if you don't know, is a hook bait spray. It's a blend of amino acids that I've put together with some other bits, alongside an old school chocolate flavor, which is actually, and I don't mind telling you, it is the Choc B flavor, which was famous flavor from Unbar Rotherham. Um, It was used a lot back in the day. It's probably not used as much now. Well, in fact, it definitely isn't. But it's just an epic flavor. People used to use it with tiger nuts particles, as well as other things. But yeah, that spray is basically, there's some of that choc bee in it, and there's a shed load of aminos, a couple of organics, and some other little bits and pieces. I'm not one for bait sprays. I don't like them. I think it's a gimmick, same as all these glugs and things that these different companies do. But so many people ask me for a bait spray. I thought, okay, well, look, if I was to make a bait spray, if I was to use it myself, what is the very best bait spray I could make? And it had to be based around amino acids, because I really believe in their ability to trigger feeding. So yeah, I've looked at the attraction side of it, and obviously I've looked at it's not obvious actually, because most companies don't, but I've looked at the taste side of it, the gustation side of it, which I think is really important. Far too many people think about attraction, what's attractive. Not enough people think about what's going to taste good to the carp. The carp want to eat things that taste good, not just allure them to be like, oh, what's that? And it tastes like shit, because bear in mind, carp taste before they actually bring it into their mouth. They're not going to bring it into their mouth if it tastes like shit. So, that's a bit of a pun actually, because they might be attracted to shit because of, digested proteins, etc. Anyway, getting a bit geeky. So yeah, anyway, most underrated product. I would say the Choco Stim. I'm going to pick another, because why not? It's my podcast. And the strange fruit flavor, I don't know what it is, but hardly anyone has bought it. The people that have bought it keep buying more. So it's a very good flavor. It's one of the best flavors I have ever used is that strange fruit, and I would say that with complete honesty. I have a fish mix. In the fish mix, I'm either using that or the Wizard, or a combo of the two. Usually a combo of the two. But that is a ridiculously good flavor. It didn't take off. I don't know whether the blurb on the website doesn't sound very good, or whether the name is shit. I don't know what it is, but not many people have bought it. But the people that have bought it keep buying a lot of it. So yeah, I would say those two things: Choco Stim and Strange Fruit. Next question is a time when you seriously struggled to overcome a tricky group of carp in a lake. Oof. Good question. Damn. Okay. What about it? I've had those times. Yeah, definitely. You want me to tell a story about it, or you want me to say? I don't really know what the question is. Let me read it again. This is from David, who messages a lot, actually. I appreciate you, David. What's he said? A time when you've seriously struggled to overcome a tricky group of carp in a lake. Yeah, I mean, every lake. I'm joking. Yeah, I struggle. I do struggle sometimes. I really, really do. If you want a kind of like epic story where I've really struggled and then it's all come good, I'm trying to scratch my brain. I don't think that has really happened, to be honest. I think I get pretty lucky. Like I'm a very lucky angler. I feel like I am. There was a carp that it took me a long time to catch. It wasn't a group of carp, so I'm kind of cheating. But there was one carp in a lake that it did. I really wanted it. I really, really wanted it. That took me quite a while to catch. And I was doing what I thought at the time. I thought I was doing everything right to catch it. But for whatever reason, I just could not catch it. I kept ringing the changes. And in the end, what I resorted to were, my memory is a little bit shaky because this is probably, I don't know how many years ago, many years ago, well over 10 years ago. But in the end, what I did was I fished, because up until then I was fishing over a lot of bait. I would always fish over bait of some sort. whether that was just a kilo or whether that was 5 or 7 or 10 kilos. Back then, I was fishing a lot more than I am now. Um, Perhaps I'll fill you into my own fishing soon. But back then, I was doing several nights a week, and I was baiting it. I was really kind of dedicating myself to it. Now, all of the fish I caught, and I caught a lot of fish, more than, I'm not trying to sound like a dick, but more than anyone else did at that time. But that's probably because I was fishing it a lot more. I was catching a lot of fish, couldn't get this fish. It had been caught, but whilst I was there, but I couldn't get it, and that was kind of odd to me because I felt like I was completely in tune with the lake. I knew I could turn up, and I would just look at the way. I just knew where they would be, and I was right. And again, that's not me tooting my own horn. It's just because I spent so much freaking time there. Like, I would walk it most days. I'd fish it several nights a week. I kept the bait going in. And this was over a very long period of time. But I just wouldn't catch it. So in the end, instead of fishing over bait, what I did was I fished a single hook bait for a while. I came up with this, I think I called it fruit aminos, and I lost the recipe for it. I think I've mentioned this before. I lost the recipe for this little hook bait I made, but I actually found the recipe not too long ago, which is quite exciting for me, at least. But anyway, going off on a tangent, fruit aminos, I called it. I don't know why I named it back then. I had no intention of selling bait back then, but anyway, I named it. And I just fished singles in the decaying fringe lilies. There was fringe lilies that absolutely smothered the lake. And I mean smothered the lake. A lot of the time it would be out in the boat to retain to get fish back in, and so it was around about this time of year actually when I caught it. I think maybe December time. There were obviously the lily beds were well and truly died back, and my tactic was fishing single hook baits of this aminos fruit aminos hook bait I put together, fishing singles in with that, and then I caught it, and that's how I did it. I mean, look, you never know. Maybe if I'd carried on fishing over bait, I was using very rich fish meals at the time, maybe I'd have caught it that way, but I didn't. And then I switched tactics, and soon after I caught. So, I would put in my head, well, it was because, that was a better tactic for that particular fish. This fish had been caught over bait before, but I noted only over the two captures that I knew about, it was caught over, again, from memory. This is probably 10, 15 years ago, something like that. I think it was just caught over maize or sweet corn, which, again, bright baits. Can't remember my thought process at the time, but I decided to go for one bright hook bait, and it all came good in the end. Very memorable capture for me. I was absolutely made up with that. Right, next question. What would be your starting point? Oh, no, done that. When is OptiBaits releasing the hydrolyzed basking shark's liver? I've got no idea what you're on about. I don't know if that's obviously in reference to something that's been said. I don't know, dude. Sorry, it's lost on me. I imagine this is part of a podcast where I was well and truly pissed up on, and I don't remember. So apologies. Next question. Binders to use instead of egg products. Cut down boil/steam times, soluble boilie paste. Yeah, do you know what? I've not really done much in the way of trying to eradicate eggs from the mix. I realise some people are worried about the trypsin inhibitor in eggs, but the reality is once that's heated, it's not a problem. A lot of the companies now, they won't use eggs because you've got to remember, it's a pain in the arse buying a shitload of eggs, cracking them. You've got to dispose of the shell somehow, although some companies will say, of course, they leave the shell in for added quote-unquote crunch factor. Basically, it just makes their life easier. Crunch factor, I'll go on to that in a different moment. But you've got to understand, it's a ball ache for most companies to actually use eggs in their production. So they will use powdered egg. You can get whole egg powder from all of the big bait suppliers, AA Baits, British Aqua Feeds. And yeah, a lot of people use that. I have used that before. You mix it up with water into a solution and then use it as you would do an egg. But that's pretty much it as far as I've gone with it, to be honest. And I stopped using it and I went back to real eggs. So for me, in the bait I make for myself and the hook baits that I sell, I use very good quality eggs from it's actually a client of mine who lives not too far away, and she provides me with chicken eggs that are very fresh, very good quality, and her chickens are fed, a vegetable diet. Look, I'm not saying you need to go to that length or anything. That's just what I do. Just get some chicken eggs. It's fine. But me, I'm like, I have a very intense mind. Like if I could just use like a normal egg from the supermarket, or I could use this like super healthy egg from this chicken that runs around with the family and it's happy and it has a great diet I would use that one any day of the week. Yes, it's more expensive, but it's a healthier chicken, it's a healthier egg. Why wouldn't I do that? But that's just me. I'm a little bit different like that. And I like the fact I'm like that. I don't want to be any different. But yeah, so look, people use different, blood powders. As I said, egg powders. There's lots of different things you can do. You can utilize whey gel. You can get around it. You can eradicate eggs if you want to. I'm not an authority to speak on that because I haven't done it. I haven't done much of it, so apologies, but I can't answer your question on that one. Next one. Can you roll me your protein mix? No, I can't. Because, do you know why? I don't want to. Sorry if that sounds rude, but I'm selling a base mix now. Even that is a pain in the ass. Bearing in mind, I'm doing this OptiBaits as a hobby because I love it. Because the catch reports and the messages I get from people, I know it sounds cheesy, blah, 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 but I actually really freaking like it. I'm enjoying it. But if I had to roll people bait, I would hate it. B, I don't have time for that. This isn't my main income. In fact, it's not any income. The company owes me money. OptiBaits is not profitable. Slowly, I'd like to think that I'd at least break even. It would be nice, wouldn't it? But yeah, it's not for the money. So I'm definitely not going to be wasting hours and hours to roll bait for people to sell with absolute minimal markup. So yeah, sorry, buddy. No, I can't. But people will roll for you. You could buy the base mix from me and pay someone a rolling fee. Be really careful they don't cut it down or do anything like that because I would hate that. I've put my heart and soul in these mixes. So yeah, please, do your due diligence. Sorry, your due diligence and make sure whoever's rolling it for you is doing a good job. But yeah, anyway, long story short, no, sorry, mate, can't roll it for you. Fishing a shallow silty lake, mostly smelly silt, ideal baits and application of it. Cheers. So if you're rolling your own bait, I would recommend using an oil-based flavor. So our Strawbermo, Strange Fruit, and Wizard, they're all oil-based. The Strange Fruit is actually a mix. It's a very odd flavor. But all those three flavors people will say they repel the silt. They don't. They just stay within the boilie much more efficiently. And yeah, I guess you could argue that it stops the sediment, the silt smell onboarding. It's a complicated thing, but yeah, those oil-based flavors would be the way to go. Look, other companies sell oil-based flavors, not many of them, but they do. So I'm not saying you have to use ours, but that's what I would do. Even if you're just rolling up your own hook baits, use an oil-based flavor because, as I said, it will retain within the bait and it won't taint. That being said, look, carps will shove past their gills into nasty, decaying silt and feed with absolute gusto. So don't let it put you off. The carp know where food is. It doesn't matter that there's nasty silt there. They will feed on it. That being said, me personally, if I wanted to feed in, if I wanted to fish in dirty silt, and I do sometimes, and I don't really fish those waters now, I like to use a bait which, has this, quote unquote, repellent property to it. And the way to do that, use an oil-based flavor. In fact, I've just been going back and forth with a listener, helping him create a bait. He's fishing this water, and the silt is very, certainly in the area he wants to fish, is very, very soft, so the baits sink in it, and it's very, very smelly. So we've been designing a bait which will actually, it's a light bait, it just about sinks, so it won't go too deep within the silt. Many of them, from understanding his kind of, he's been looking at them and testing them, etc. Many of the baits will actually sit on top of the soft silt, which is great because you've got the visual aspect of the carp. So you're not just relying on the smells given off, you're relying on the visual aspect. And we're using, or he's using that alongside the strange fruit flavor. So you can, if you do, I don't know if you roll your own bait or not, but if you do, you can perhaps make them lighter or change them so they actually sit on top of the silt. It takes quite a lot of work. I've spent so much time with that guy coming up with this base mix. I was thinking the other day, this is nothing against the guy at all, because I was happy to help him, and he was really, really nice bloke. But I probably spent, I don't know, 2 to 3 hours with him, back and forth, emails, coming up with different things. And I can't really be doing that too much. So if you're listening to this thinking, oh, great, he can help me with my mix, in the nicest way possible, I probably can't, because I just don't have time to do it for everyone. Just thought I'd put that warning out there. I did think about actually coming up, putting something on the website saying, look, if you want like consultancy, like here's the fee per hour or whatever. And I know that sounds super cheeky and kind of bolshy, for want of a better phrase, but like, I work for a living. This is a hobby, and it's very difficult to sacrifice several hours to helping people. As much as I like to do it, I have to come to a point where I'm thinking that I'm losing out of my other business, which is my main breadwinner, which is my only breadwinner, to be honest. Anyway, I'm waffling on. The beers are well and truly kicked in. By the way, tip of the episode, I'm just on nothing fancy. I'm just on the Kronenbergs this evening. I've had quite a few before I hit record. You can probably tell. Probably maybe a little bit slurry. I don't know. But they're going down very, very well. So, tip of the episode is Kronenberg, which isn't my usual beer, but that's what I got. Next question is gonna be from Brian. Do you think pet foods and bird foods are still good to use in carp baits? And what time of year are they best? Interesting question. I think it depends on what pet food you're on about, and what bird food. I mean, bird foods to use in a boilie production. I think I said this to Dean on the last episode I did with Dean. I struggle to see the value in buying a ready-made bird food now. If you look at that, if you look at what makes that bird food up, you could make what the bits of it that you want, you can buy them separately and just make that yourself. And most of those bird foods have things in that you don't really want in there. Whether that's extra egg, for me, I wouldn't want extra egg in there. Whether that's soya, again, I wouldn't want soya in there, or whatever it might be. You can just make it up yourself without those extra bits. So, I don't know. I'm not. I've rolled many a bird food bait in my time, but nowadays I have a bird food type mix, which I call the Cotswold Cream Mix. It's not really a bird food. It's not really a cereal bait. It's not really a milk bait. It's not really a nut bait. It's like its own thing. But I guess you could liken it to a bird food. And I add those things in individually. And it works very, very well. If you're rolling boilies, it's easy, isn't it? It's convenient to buy a bird food. Orlux do them. Quicko do them as well. Both of those companies do good bird foods. Not cheap anymore, but yeah, they're good. It's convenient. I get it. In terms of pet foods, I'm trying to think of of an ingredient that's sold for pets that I use. Boost 250 is a bird vitamin liquid, which is quite good for carp baits. I don't use that now, but I've used that years ago, and that was good. I use pedigree chum mixers for surface fishing. Not that I don't do much of that. I've used cat biscuits ground down, which can be very, very good as well. But yeah, again, time and place, probably not what I would do now. Really, I exclusively fish with boilies, and I add powders on top and liquids on top of the boilies. I do use particles sometimes as well. I like nuts, I like peanuts, I like tiger nuts. But yeah, I don't use those kind of pet foods too much, to be honest with you. Oh, pigeon conditioner I used to use a lot, but again, I don't use that now. But pigeon conditioner, yeah, good. It's a very good particle. I'd happily use that. Um, so yeah, personal preference. If I was fishing a water and I wanted to fish particles, generally I'd use groats, hemp, and some maize. I like those. If I can use nuts, I'd use peanuts as well. Tiger nuts maybe, and I'd be a happy boy. Hopefully that answers your question. Next question is, hook baits are easy money. Huh, they are not. Not for me, they're not. But anyway, hook baits are easy money. Are you guys planning to introduce special developed hydros and so? I don't know where you are. Well, I don't know where you've been. But yeah, we do. I do. I have my GLM Greenlit Muscle Hydro Blend, which isn't pure Greenlit Muscle. I make this perfectly clear on the website and in the blurb and everything. But it's all based around the attractiveness of Greenlit Muscle, which for me, I am a massive advocate of. I always have been. Greenlit Muscle extract, very, very good product. Very hard to get hold of the real top quality good stuff. But it is such a good ingredient. It's unreal. So yeah, I have my hydro blend, which is actually a blend of hydrolyzed ingredients, loads of greenlit mussel, and some fermented ingredients as well. That blend has caught ridiculously well. The biggest carp it's ever done is an upper 60 from Lake Bled, and it's done huge carp over here as well. In fact, I put on the story on Instagram story not so long ago that's caught numerous 40s and 50 and a 50. I had someone reply basically saying I was full of shit. Dude, I'm not full of shit. Like, it actually has caught those fish. I don't know what else to say. It just, things like that is just like, okay, makes me not want to put anything out there. And if you notice, if you look at my social media, I'm not a salesy guy. Like, I don't even post my own catch reports. I like to keep things private, but yeah, no, the product's done very, very well. And there's a powdered component to go with it, which, I mean, they work very well together. You can use them separately. But yeah, the GLM primer powder, I use it for bags and sticks, but also I coat boilies with it. So I'll drizzle the GLM Hydro Blend, which is the liquid, on, and then I'll cover it with the powder, and I'll do that several times onto boilies. It works so freaking well because you've got a readily released cloud of attraction coming out of your bait. It really does make a profound difference. So yeah, anyway, I'm waffling on, but you're late. I've already released a special developed hydro, already been done, and the powder as well to go with it. And yeah, hopefully that answers your question. Next question is, do you think there is mileage in bacteria active baits? Brackets, not sure if you can name them, but like SAE Bacteria 1, Bacteria B1. Yeah, I can name them. I don't mind naming other companies. Don't bother me at all. I'm not familiar with them. I've never heard of them. Bacteria active baits. I mean, bacteria, as far as I'm aware, we have to be carefully scientific here, but bacteria itself, I don't believe is attractive to carp. I'm presuming the bacteria is liberating something from the feed matter, which is attractive to carp. And I can think of a few things that may be at play, but it sounds, I mean, I might be wrong. It sounds like a bit of a fad type thing. Again, I'd have to really look into it. I don't know everything about bait. I really don't. No one does, do they? There's endless different facets of it that you could look into, but bacteria active baits. I mean, I don't know. What does that even mean? Bacteria active baits. Well, my baits, when I put them in the water, they're active to bacteria. So they are they are bacteria active. So yeah, I mean, you could argue all baits are active to bacteria. So I'm not really sure where the company is coming from with that. Again, there might be something I'm overlooking. They might be doing something. I don't know. If you are, what baits is it? SAE, bacteria B. Don't come and try and sue me. I'm not saying your bait's shit. I'm sure it's very good. But yeah, I mean, bacteria active, what's that even mean? I don't really get that. Don't really get that at all. Just turning baits. Yeah, I like turning baits. There's different ingredients you can put in that will enhance baits turning. I'm a fan of that. But it's not the bacteria that I'm after. The bacteria are just one part of the puzzle. Don't know if that helps or not. Apologies if it doesn't. Next one is: do you think that smaller independent bait companies produce better bait? I think that they can produce better bait and they have the ability to, but then again, I think the big boys, they have the ability to because they have the funding, they have the money behind them. Do the smaller companies necessarily produce a better bait? Not necessarily. No, not at all. I mean, there are so many small companies out there now. I am pretty sure a lot of it is absolute dog shit. Like, I really think that there's so many of these little companies now, and you look at the quote unquote credentials of people that own it. They might talk a good game, but they're freaking clueless. And you can even spot this by reading some of the blurbs. Some of them just write ridiculous stuff, which you just know is absolute bullshit just by looking at it. But yeah, no, I think can small independent companies produce a better bait? Well, I suppose better than what? Better than the big boys? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I do think so. Do they necessarily do it? No. Obviously, I'd like to think that I do. My company's, you've got to understand, it's very different. I'm genuinely not doing it for a living. As I said, I lose money on it. I've lost money on it. It's a bit different for me than these other guys that are doing it for a living. And again, I don't want to shit over anyone's business. I really don't. But yeah, I'd be very careful about who I bought bait from if I was to buy bait. Many of you know, when I wasn't rolling my own bait, I was buying from Kenny Gates. Really rated his bait. Very, very good quality. Really like Kenny as well. He's a top guy. Really puts his heart and soul into his baits. Dean Towie from Scientific Baits, exactly the same goes. I would happily use his bait in a heartbeat if I needed to buy bait. Both of those guys, absolutely solid, very, very good baits. Rolling baits as well. It was interesting talking to Dave Moore. Again, happily use those baits. And yeah, they're smaller guys. I suppose rolling baits are a bit bigger. But yeah, anyway, waffling on, aren't I? I am waffling on. Next question. What is your personal favourite podcast episode so far? And this is from Jake the Heron, who we did an episode with. I've got to say Tommy Bish, haven't I, Jake? And you know why I'm saying that. Yeah, Tommy Bish. I'm going to leave it there, bud. Next one. If there was one winter method you could use, which would it be? Oh, gosh, I don't know. That is a bloody good question. If there was one winter method I could use, what would it be? Depends on the lake, obviously, but you don't want to hear that. I would have to say then, and this is going to be, for those of you that know me and have fished with me, this is going to sound really weird, but I think if there was one method and I could only use it, it would be PVA bags, solid bags. And I'm not a solid bag angler. I used them a lot when I was developing the GLM primer powder. It wasn't, necessarily just for bags because it's made to go on boilies, but it works really well in bags as well. So I used it a lot during that testing period. And I think if I just could do one method, I would do that, because you can cast to a lot of different, onto a lot of different substrates in mild weed, blah, 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 blah. You can add lots of things to it. It's not like a boilie where you are somewhat confined by, will it roll? Will it stay together? Blah, 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 blah. You don't have that problem with a bag because you're stuffing it all into this little PVA bag. So it's very interesting, actually, what you can do. So you can have burst out attraction. I could fish somewhat of a single because I could make that bag tiny. I like fishing singles in winter. So I could do that. So if I was like really tied to one method, I think a PVA bag, I could have a big one out there for loads of attraction. I could do lots of different things with it, and I could have a tiny one if I wanted more of a single approach. So yeah, I think I would go for that. If you want to know like what I do a lot of the time in winter, I'll fish over bait happily if it's right to do so, but I'll also fish singles. I am more than happy fishing a very attractive single hook bait in winter. Again, you gotta find those fish. Even more important in winter because they're not moving around as much. It's so freaking important to find the fish. So yeah, I'm gonna go with that. A PVA bag. If I had to stick to one thing and nothing else, got to be a PVA bag, isn't it? Next question is: do you believe in big fish baits, or what would your tactics be to target the bigger, older carp in the lake? Good question. Yes, I do believe in big fish baits. I really do. I've spoken about this like earlier in this podcast. Did I or did I not? But that's how my GLM products came about. I've used greenlit mussel, full fat, not the don't go for the low fat stuff. Full fat GLM. I've used that for absolutely years and years and years, and I rate it so freaking highly. That is one of those ingredients. If I was going to put together a big fish bait, which obviously I have done, which I'll be selling soon, then yeah, that is. I believe in it. I think it does have a bearing on the fish you catch. Does that mean you're not going to catch small ones? No, of course not. You're going to catch the smaller fish, but I believe in that. In the same respect, and Dean rightly said this in one of his episodes, BCAs, branch chain amino acids, you could put a good argument forward that they are favored by the bigger fish. I believe in that. The hydro milk base mix that I sell, it hasn't been out on the market that long. People are reporting back saying, I'm not necessarily catching as much, but I'm catching the fish that don't get caught. This is I've had this from quite a few different people. They're catching the obscure fish that don't get caught, and that is really interesting to me. And they are the older, maybe wiser fish, depending on how you view them. So yeah, I believe in big fish baits. Other baits, to be honest, I've put together, they just seem to catch the bigger fish, and I'm not even sure why. There must be a reason for it. Damned if I could figure out why. Yeah, I can't always understand the reasoning behind things, but it definitely is there. Yeah, so yeah, I 100% believe in big fish baits. 100%. If I was going to a venue, like say I went to a new venue, if I just wanted to look good and catch a load of fish, right, I would use probably a different bait than the bait that I go on there with, because the bait I use is pitched towards whichever fish I want to catch, whatever I think will work for that fish. Again, look, I'm not God. I might be wrong. I probably am wrong most of the time, but still, that's my thought process and my belief process. So yeah. Definitely believe in big fish baits. The second part of the question is, what would be my tactic to target the bigger / older carp in the lake? Again, depends what I'm fishing for. I don't know how much I want to say because I've just got a ticket for somewhere. Probably not going to be able to fish it until spring, to be honest. But there's some big commons in there and there's some big mirrors in there. The mirrors aren't as big and they're a lot rarer. And I want to try and single those mirrors out and avoid the commons, which I realise might sound odd, but from a bait formulation perspective, it's absolutely fascinating. So yeah, I'll have a set tactic for that. I don't really want to go into that. But yeah, I'll leave that there. But can I answer it in a different way? What would your tactics be for the larger, bigger old carp in the lake? I don't know. Lake dependent, isn't it? A couple of the lakes that I've sort of managed to catch the bigger fish on, I've noticed that they tend to have different feeding areas. So the last sort of big fish that I caught, it didn't come out very often at all. Like like some people thought it was dead. It was just never seen. Blah 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 blah. Like I found that, and it was hanging out in an area that no one really fished. It wasn't really thought to hold fish that area, and it was hanging out there. Now it was a big fish. It was obviously eating, but and again going back to body shape, it was a very kind of specific shape. It had a big gut, and it was it was an old fish, beautiful fish, but it had quite a distinct body shape, which I think, why didn't it get caught much? Probably where it was hanging around, probably the way it was feeding, and quite possibly its preference for bait as well, I believe. So for that one, I didn't actually change baits because the bait I was using I thought was perfect for it. I just fished in a different area. And I've told this story. I saw it one day. I was going to come back. I knew I was going to catch it. Like I knew it. I absolutely knew it. I knew. I know that sounds weird and maybe like arrogant or whatever, but I knew it the way it would. I was walking around the lake. So I saw it one day. I was going to come back the next day for a few hours. Before I got there, I was like, well, make sure you tell the full story on the podcast. And like, it was just a done deal in my head. I knew that I was going to catch it and I knew exactly how I would catch it. And it all happened. Now, look, probably just a massive fluke, which just blew up my ego and I was probably just fucking very lucky. But I don't know. It makes you think, doesn't it? It makes you think. And it goes back to what I was saying before, is trust your instinct on it. Like I think more people should trust their instinct when it comes to fishing, because the amount of times I've caught fish because of like just a gut instinct, there has to be something in it. So yeah, I don't know if that helps. Probably not, but I've done my best anyway on that one. Where are we up to of time? As I said, I am short on time, so I think I'm probably going to leave it for this episode here. And then I will come back to you again with a different episode. Well, with the second half of this episode. Let me just look how many more questions there are. Yeah. So there's quite a lot of questions left to answer. So I think I'm going to save it for a part 2. Again, sorry, this episode is not as long as some of the others, but I realize you guys want episodes, like you want content. I totally understand that. For me to make that happen, I've just got to kind of understand that it can't be perfect, but I'm going to fire it out anyway. Hopefully those of you that have listened have got something good from this episode. The questions in the next half of this seem to be pretty good. I'm going to be covering things on, let's have a look, ways to improve boilie digestibility, how to get a carp on a bait, winter combinations, whether to go down the HMV route or not. I'm just reading out the questions that are upcoming. PVA bag and hook bait mixes, how to create your one and done hook bait. Loads of different interesting questions. So if you enjoy this kind of podcast, tune into part 2. It will be much of the same. I will probably do it when I'm a little bit more, I've got a bit more spare time, and I'll probably go into a bit more detail of things, and I guess I'll probably fill you all in on my angling as well, and just talk about where I'm at, which is very different from how it has been. I've gone from someone who has like quite a lot of time to fish because I didn't have anything else going on. Basically, I just prioritized fishing, doing several nights a week, to someone who's only got one night a week, but I can go to the lake regularly to bait up, to now someone who cannot get to the lake, only has a few hours fishing per week, best, and that's it. At the minute, I'm turning up to a lake. Maybe I've got 5 hours there in the day, and that is it. And then I've got to go home. That's my only opportunity all week. I can't bait up. I can't do anything else. So I'm fishing that very, very differently than I would be if I could bait up or if I could do more than one, session. So perhaps I'll talk about that, the changes that I've made, and what I'm, the way I'm seeing things going in the future. I've kind of gone from one extreme to the other. I realise most people will sit somewhere in between, but perhaps it'll be interesting. Anyway, that's it. Thank you for listening. If you've carried on listening until now, please go ahead, leave us a review on the Apple app. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, leave us a review. If you listen elsewhere, I don't think you can actually leave us a review. But nonetheless, I appreciate you listening. By all means, if anyone has any questions, you want any help, whatever it might be, send me a message on social media. I'm most active on Instagram, but you can get me on Facebook as well. Just search Carp Chronicles Podcast and it will pop up. That's it for this episode. Thank you for listening and take care of yourselves. I will speak to you soon. Psst. If you're still here and you happen to be listening on the Apple Podcast app or Apple iTunes, please take a few moments, leave me a review, let me know how we're doing with this podcast. A, it's really nice to hear from you, and B, it helps this podcast stay relevant and stay in the ratings. If it doesn't stay in the ratings, it falls behind, people don't listen to it, and obviously that means there's not much point me doing it anymore. So if you can take a moment to leave me a review, I'd really appreciate it. If you're not listening on an Apple device, I don't think you can leave us a review unless there's some means that I'm not aware of, but nonetheless, I appreciate you listening. It does mean a lot to me. And feel free to reach out on social media. That's it. I look forward to bringing the next episode to you very soon.